Welcome to the Tuesday Review Live on 98.9 Northwest FM. I'm Nathan, as always, joined by James. How you going, James? Has anything made you happy this week?
Only one thing, because it's been pretty miserable. What are we, 3 weeks into 2025? It's been pretty awful, but one thing made me happy. Severance is back, baby!
So, yeah, I'm going to run with that too. That's my thing that's made me happy this week. I had nothing else. I said to the boys before we went live, I don't know, I got nothing
It's rough. Yeah. It's rough out there. We try to stay positive on the show because it's easy to get down, but, whew, boy. But yeah, Severance is back. Oh my God.
Yeah.
I'm kind of pissed off now. I have to wait a week to watch the next episode.
Yeah, but it gives you something to live for.
But yeah, it gives me something to look forward to.
Also joined by Alan. How you going, Alan? What's something that's made you happy this week, if anything?
I am good, thank you. What's made me happy this week is Elon Musk being exposed as a fake gamer who buys his accounts and then.
Did you know that someone caught him online on Path of Exile
while
he was at the inauguration? Yeah. And everyone's like, "Oh, he's got the Neuralink. He's doing it while he's
sure."
Like just the justifications, and I'm like, I think there's a great comment I kind of saw or listened to yesterday, or maybe today, where this is the same guy who wants to, he's so like thin-skinned and gets upset over weird things, and he's the same guy that wants to start a Mars colony. Yeah, and then I guess establish the rules on that.
I mean, who's the guy in BioShock? He wants to be that guy, right? The kind of like have the
his
own whole colony and the whole kind of
yeah. I mean, that's the thing though, is these psychos are getting like these rich psychos, they're basically they're creating their own. I mean, they're an oligarchy.
I mean, yeah,
look, but they're trying to create their own.
We try not to get overtly political on the show, but I'm like, if you'd watch the inauguration, it's like there's Donald Trump and then literally all the richest men on the planet.
It's
right
insane.
Behind him. And I'm like, I don't care what political party you're a part of. If you've got like all of literally, there was like $1 trillion in the room.
We should really move on because we could take up the whole show talking about this because there's just too much to talk about. There's so much, like the Nazi salute and like there's so much.
We'll say this much. If you bought any of the cryptocurrency that they launched as a goof right before the inauguration.
Oh, you mean the bribery scam?
Trump coin.
Yeah, the Trump coin, you deserve to lose your money.
Yeah.
So,
Anyway, we'll move on. But yeah, look, any party, any leader, it doesn't matter. If you have like $1 trillion of billionaires backing you, you're not for the people.
Yeah. No.
But we'll move on. Also joined by Callum. What's something, if anything, that's made you happy this week?
Not a lot. Got a new phone. That's nice. Before the show went live, I saw some notices that there's a few new 4Ks coming, which made me happy.
Cool.
Hail Caesar is coming out on 4K. Blue Velvet. I would anticipate quite a lot of David Lynch. Will be getting re-releases, including 4Ks. And also Burn After Eating's getting a 4K release. So it seems like there's going to be a few more coming out. So that made me happy.
Coen Brothers has been really slow to release in 4K, so the more the better.
Yeah. Is Oh Brother We're Out There in 4K?
No, see, that's one that needs to be. A lot of theirs aren't, and I'm waiting. I was
surprised when when Christopher Nolan of Oppenheimer fame was reported to be making the Odyssey, because I'm like, the Coen Brothers already did it.
Yeah, exactly. First thing before we get into it is Freelance, the movie we talked to director John Ballas about a couple weeks ago. That is being released on VOD on January 28th. So next week, keep an eye out. We'll put some stuff on our social media, so make sure you're following us. And make sure you're following John's production company who made Freelance at Prima Lux Films.
Also note they have a special movie premiere in Sydney for any Sydney listeners that would hear this. There's probably still a chance to buy a ticket.
Cool.
I guess we'll leave the links in the description of the episode when it goes live.
Yeah.
So there's tomorrow night there's a screening if you live in Sydney.
Well, the podcast probably won't be out.
It'll be out.
It'll be out, but it's like by the time people listen, it's probably too late.
Yeah, but we'll also put in the link in the description in case people are interested. Yes, Freelance comes out next week. We'll talk about it again next week and let people know that it's out. I guess, where do we start? I guess we'll start.
Well, it's another bummer
Yeah.
We a long time ago on the old show, we actually decided to stop. We would do obituaries like all the time whenever anyone's died. Like, oh, shout out to this or that. So we originally decided to not do it anymore.
Yep.
But unfortunately, a big one happened.
This is a big
weekend.
one, an important one. Important to a lot of people, but especially to us.
Yeah.
So David Lynch passed away. We've talked about him many times on the show, many times over the years.
Great American auteur filmmakers.
Yeah, just a great artist in general.
Great human being by all bots, even if you did vote for Reagan.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he did. It's so just some background on this. It's so interesting. So the outpouring of grief for David Lynch's passing has rightfully been significant. But then, like, there are people, like, everyone's projecting their own thoughts and their own politics onto David Lynch. And, like, I've been seeing some crazy takes, which I won't get into here, about his, like, approach to whiteness and families. And, like, if you believe the people out there, he hates white people. He hated the nuclear family. He was, like, this really, like, hardcore progressive communist filmmaker. Anyway, so someone replied to this thing. And in one of the obituary articles, someone replied to a thread with the Washington Post, I believe it was, article about his passing. And it talked about how he was, like, David Lynch was, from what people, he was a very private man, but from the little he did talk, he loved America, like Americana.
Yeah.
Comes across in Blue Velvet, which we'll talk about later.
Yeah, Twin Peaks.
But yeah, he was also, he liked Reagan. He was happy to vote for Reagan. But I think he liked presidents, if that makes sense. He was also apparently thrilled when he saw Nixon in person when he was a boy.
We won't get into it because it'll take up too much of the show, but it was a different time.
But he's the kind of guy who I think he would just be like, that's neat. If he saw any president, he'd be like, wow, a president.
And it used to be neat, It used to be, wow, the president, he's an important guy. And now it's a joke. But yeah, David Lynch,
so my point is he's a complicated man.
But yeah,
he made such amazing films.
It's any person, let alone someone who's in the public eye or has made art that people appreciate. Yeah, there's more to them than just what you see in interviews or what you see in their art.
Also, because he was so private, people change over time. Yeah. So it's not like, he might have been a Reaganite in the 80s when Reagan was at the height of his popularity,
I feel like if you watch his work, listen to him speak, like he's definitely progressive, but that, again, in the early 80s, whatever, late 70s, early 80s, it's a different time thing. Anyway, we won't get into that.
We're getting off track.
What we really want to talk about... We did watch
Blue Velvet.
Yeah, before we get onto that, David Lynch is, such a beloved filmmaker, artist, musician, personality, painter,
creative weirdo.
Just creative weirdo, yeah. And he was so important and influential to so many people and so many artists, and there was a big outpouring of love, and we obviously want to join in on that, and I especially want to highlight, which we've talked about on the show before, that one of the first things Callum, Nathan, and myself bonded over was Twin Peaks. Probably one of the reasons we are friends and as good friends as we are, and one of the reasons we even have this show is because of David Lynch.
Yep.
So that's a big important, like, it's possible that this show wouldn't exist, or we wouldn't be friends, or it would just be a different, we'd be in a different situation. So yeah, I just wanted to highlight that because it's very important to us also, personally.
I guess people consider it maybe a bit quaint now, but it's also hard to underestimate or overestimate, I should say, the importance of Twin Peaks when it came out.
100%.
Yeah. It took everyone by storm. We weren't even like, it wasn't really our generation who would watch it weekly when it came out, especially in Australia.
We just the amount of people that it's inspired to make content.
And still inspires.
And it was
even in Japan, it was absolutely massive. Like there's all like the video games.
Well, Silent Hill and all those.
The Deadly Premonition, directly inspired by Twin Peaks.
Yeah, and like, this, you have to keep in mind as well, it's like, this was like 1989, 1990. Like this was before like the premium HBO shows and stuff like that.
So, and it was on a mainstream network.
Exactly. And it was radical and it was crazy, and it's its own genre, it's its own world, it's its own entity. Like it's just unlike anything else. And it was so amazing. And then of course later when they did the return, we were doing the old show, and we basically, like, at the start, we would watch it week to week, and then at the start of every episode, we'd be like, we got to talk about this.
Yeah.
And we would, like, watch episodes together, and it was a great time because it was, like, unlike any other show.
Yeah.
Even though by that point, when was this, 2017?
Yeah.
By that point, you know, there were all the premium cable and streaming shows. And this was still just an anomaly and so amazing.
Yeah.
And I remember episode 8.
The bomb episode,
Yeah, it was so
Cinema.
intense. We were watching it together, and it was so intense. Like, it finished, we didn't know what to say, we didn't know what to do.
And none of us are smokers. It's like it was something where it's like the instinct was to go outside and have a smoke.
Yeah, and we just had to take a break. We're like, that's enough of life. Of TV, that's enough of everything. It's just like,
I need to go have a lie down.
Yeah, it's like, let's have a lie down. It was huge. So David Lynch, very important, obviously, to a lot of people, but to us in the studio especially.
Before we move on, can I just relay 2 really nice anecdotes that I read about David Lynch?
Yeah.
Today, I'll make it real quick. I swear.
No, it's all right. We still got to talk about Blue Velvet.
The first one is he went on. I think it was Conan when Twin Peaks was threatening to be cancelled at one point, and then he asked the audience to write to Bob Iger, who was the head of ABC at the time, and then he gave Bob Iger's mailing address to the audience. And I thought that was hilarious. Like, you could write to him officially here at this address.
Yeah.
And the other one was after he passed away, he exclusively ate at Bob's Big Boy, which is like some famous
it's like a burger
LA burger joint.
Like a diner, yeah.
So they've been getting a lot of visitors, obviously, because there's the shrine outside.
Yeah.
And so one of the grievers went into the restaurant, and they were talking about it. And one of the Gen Z waitresses who worked there had no idea who David Lynch was. So anyway, she showed this lady a photo. And she goes, "Oh, that nice man who comes here every day." No, she had no idea. She only knew him to look at him. She's like, "Oh, that's so sad. He was so nice to everyone."
Yeah.
And I thought that was really interesting. Like, that's such a sweet anecdote. It's like he wasn't famous to her.
He
was just that guy who comes in every day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway,
that's awesome.
yeah, I thought that was a nice anecdote.
Yeah. So many great stories and so many great.
Yeah. So in memoriam, me and Alan watched Blue Velvet for the first time.
I can't believe you haven't seen it before, Nathan. That's insane.
Just kept escaping. Like,
Alan, I understand. He hasn't seen any.
I've watched David Lynch's Dune. Arguably,
okay, fair enough.
The best Dune.
Yeah, hot take. Lynch's Dune is better than Denis Villeneuve's.
Right. The other one's just what is it?
The other one is a stereotypical Hollywood adaptation of a novel, whereas David Lynch's Dune,
he was doing his own thing.
It's David Lynch's spirit interpreting Dune.
Yeah. So we went over to Alam's and used his projector and watched Blue Velvet on the big screen. It was a good experience. Yeah. Yeah, I know.
I'm disappointed in you, Nathan, that you had to wait for the great man to die to watch.
Before we get into
probably my favorite movie of his, maybe.
Yeah,
and especially being, big tweet, and we for years we talked about David Lynch, and you still I can't believe it. But
out of just, I want your opinion on something real quick.
Yeah,
Nathan reckons that Blue Velvet is less accessible than Lost Highway.
No, so this was actually the next thing I was going to say. I mean, until Alan sees some of his other films,
I have to rewatch Lost Highway. I haven't seen it in a long time.
The most accessible is Wild at Heart, but yeah,
I'd say Blue Velvet. Or Wild at Heart. I think I was going to say Blue Velvet, as insane as this sounds, might be a good entry point if you haven't seen any Lynch 100%, before.
I agree.
Because Eraserhead is a bit too arty and weird.
It's also horrific.
Elephant Man is great and I love it. But I don't know if that's a good one to show someone as a Lynch, like their first Lynch movie.
Is Elephant Man just not really with syphilis, and he's like, I'm
not syphilis.
He has like gigantism. He's got the giant.
There's another word for that. It's not syphilis.
Yeah, it's not syphilis.
Oh wait, no, never mind. People would lose their noses on that. Sorry.
Yeah, and so Dune is not really representative. I think Blue Velvet is a good place to start because it's got the Americana. It's like a proto Twin Peaks with the nice picket fence town and family, but underneath the surface it's all grimy and weird and violent. It's got the musical, magical element, and it's got the hard-boiled, crimey element.
Yeah. It also has that great editing where someone will just disappear on the screen.
Yeah, it's just
I love that so much.
It's got his style, it's got his kind of world building. So I think that's a good place to start if you haven't seen Lynch stuff before, because then when you get to Lost Highway and Mulholland Drive and God forbid Inland Empire, which I don't think anyone should that should never be your first Lynch. I think Blue Velvet's a good place to start, or just watch the original Twin Peaks show. And that'll give you a good
primed.
sense.
Yeah. You watch Twin Peaks, and then if you want to turn it up, you watch his films.
Yeah, well, you watch Twin Peaks and you're like, wow, this is great. And then you watch Firewalk with Me, which is, I guess, a prequel to Twin Peaks, but also it's a bit different. And that's like turning it up to 11. You're like, oh, I love Twin Peaks. And it's like, this is Twin Peaks, but it's crazier and more violent and more sad. Also, like when he passed away, obviously I was very sad. Even my friend David, like he's not really, he hasn't seen many or any David Lynch. Like he's not really, but he knew I was a big fan. And so when he passed away, like he messaged me, he goes, "Oh, I'm sorry, man. Like, are you okay?" Like he knew that I would be affected. But the thing that's weird is like after he passed away, all I could think about was The Straight Story, which is David Lynch's most...
Isn't it his most kind of
his most straightforward, not weird, not violent, not arty film. And so it's kind of an outlier in his filmography. And it's still a great movie. And, you know, if you watch it, you can see some of his signature style and whatever. But all I could think about with that movie, and it made me really sad. But that's a good movie too. All these movies are good. Inland Empire, maybe not.
I mean,
but
what about the Netflix short film where it's like the monkey?
Oh, the monkey. We should get Alan to watch that and be like, okay, this is David Lynch. You watched Blue Velvet. That was the 80s. Now this is David Lynch.
In the
2020.
I'll give it a go.
Did you watch that little cartoon I put in the group chat?
No.
Watch that later as well.
All
That's also, I think that you would appreciate that sense of humor. David Lynch movies are also hilarious. In addition to being weird and violent and scary, they're also very sad and very funny.
He's great at dark humor.
Yeah,
like finding the humor in a really terrible situation.
And because of his sort of the way he does dialogue and stuff, it's got that weird, eerie, uncanny, and sometimes that can be humorous. Because it's just like characters repeating things and staring blankly, and that's weird and uncomfortable.
Or a character being a policeman and seeing something and then just crying, like Andy in Twin Peaks, like that kind of.
Yeah, Andy was too good for this world.
Anyway, moving on to Blue Velvet.
Yes.
So I guess, you know, it's about a college-aged young man coming back to his hometown for the holidays, and his dad's in hospital, and he finds an ear on the floor. Which sets up
he's walking through a field behind his house. So he finds a severed ear, and that sets off like
a chain of events.
So there's a famous David Foster Wallace quote, which I've been reading a lot lately, and it's perfect for Blue Velvet. And the quote is, Quentin Tarantino wants to show you someone's finger getting cut off. David Lynch wants you to show you the finger. And I thought that was such a funny quote. And this must be because this was David Foster Wallace. I don't think he's alive anymore.
No.
So this must have been from the 90s.
Yeah.
And I thought that's such an interesting thing. There's a Family Guy. He's had a few Family Guy cameos. And in the Family Guy cameo, he comes down, he crawls out of the chimney at Christmas time. Yeah. And the gift he's bringing the child is a finger in a box. Yeah. And then he goes to the child... no, don't look away. Yeah. Because let the fear wash over you.
Yeah.
And anyway, I think
don't forget to leave a plate of coffee out for me next time.
Yeah, and in the past, he goes, and in the past.
Yeah, what's also funny is that he actually voiced it himself. Like, they didn't get a sound-alike, whatever.
Apparently, he refused heaps of cameos. He always did Family Guy. Yeah. And I think he was like a bartender in the Cleveland show.
That's awesome.
But anyway, my point is, it's that notion of like that he wants to show you the damage, not just it being inflicted.
Yeah, as an actor, he was also great. Like he played Gordon in Twin Peaks. He was in an episode of Louis C.K.'s show,
and he was in the Spielberg film.
Yeah, The Fabelmans. He played John Ford, which was great. That moment was so good.
Yeah. Anyway, back to Blue Velvet.
Yes.
We're getting off topic again.
Sorry. No, it's all related.
Yeah. But Yeah, so he finds an ear. Kyle MacLachlan's character finds an ear, and then it sets off like a chain of events about who does the ear belong to, and then you chase the clues down as the plotline continues.
Yeah,
it's like a noir. It's kind of like a noir structure, like noir.
Yeah,
and the villain is amazing.
Frank. Oh my god.
Frank Booth, played by Dennis Hopper, one of the greatest villains of all time.
Yeah,
one of the craziest performances.
I was saying such great lines, but we can't really quote him live on air.
Yeah, that's the thing. While we're live, I guess we can do. The Callum linked us a YouTube video of the made for TV. The edited for TV version where they edit all the F words to freak.
Don't freaky, look at me.
Yeah, he's like,
Heineken,
freak that
crap.
Yeah. Pabst Blue Ribbon. I'll freak anything that moves.
We bought Heineken to drink while watching Blue Velvet.
Oh, nice.
Because
we can't get Pabst here.
You can.
Just not at your local.
Yeah, it's not the smallest stores. You probably get it at like a big box. We'll call it store. I don't want to get the name out. But it's Pabst Blue Ribbon's crap anyway. So
I did say to Alman, we have to get Heineken. You'll appreciate it when the moment comes.
For me, the best way to describe the film is a young male, or young man, ignores his father who's bedridden in hospital and decides to go on like a vigilante investigation.
Yeah.
Alternatively, a young man strings a young woman along to aid him in being a pervert.
But both of these things coexist.
It's like, when you say that, do you want to watch that kind of a movie? No, I don't think I do. But it's like, you know what? No, it'll be a good time. It'll be good times. Give it a go.
Yeah. Being a perv and like being obsessed, it's very like Lynchian sort of,
It's all in his wheelhouse.
And like the darkness inside. It's like you got this clean cut college boy and this pretty cheerleader or whatever, and it's like he's gonna drag him down into the underworld.
That's kind of what Lynch was all about, though. Those kinds of
like Laura Palmer is the prom queen, and but in reality, there was all this dark stuff that was going on with her and to her and.
Yeah. Did you end up watching Twin Peaks? Oh, you couldn't get like 100% behind it, could you?
That's
something you should revisit because I think that you get more out of it now.
Now that I've had some more.
You also have
Lynch
a better
experience.
palette now. Than
you got a bit of a primer.
And I think what did rough me up a little bit was watching the second episode.
That's it.
I was like, what's going on here? I need more context.
Yeah.
And then I watched the first episode, I'm like, oh, that's all the context.
You know what? Kev, I'll rewatch Twin Peaks from the start with you. We can watch it
if
side
we
by
do
side.
that, we should all do it and just make this show a Twin Peaks show. Because
let me
I'd be
finish
happy
The Sopranos. Because I owe The Sopranos.
Yeah.
When you finish The Sopranos, we'll dedicate like the first 5 minutes of every episode to our Twin Peaks thoughts.
Yeah.
Because I think also now that you've been more exposed to more David Lynch, you'll appreciate a little bit of the subtle things that you see in the hints.
Because you watch it and be like, oh, I remember he did that in Blue Velvet.
Yeah.
Like you'll notice some of the same style and the Americana and
don't look at me.
The humor. And
Yeah,
but also keep in mind that Blue Velvet was a movie and Twin Peaks was a commercial TV show, but it's still kind of amazing what they got away with. Twin Peaks.
There's a lot of the same stuff, if not worse, that's alluded to, or it's not directly shown, but it has a lot of the same nasty stuff behind the scenes, which kind of makes it even more like the way they address it's even more sometimes confronting.
Yeah, well, that's the thing about TV shows and old movies where they couldn't really show things, so they had to
and it ends up the sex scene, so you have the train going into the mountain.
yeah. But oftentimes that had its own impact.
Yeah,
like its own.
Like certain characters go through certain changes, and your mind puts two and two together, and you're like, "Oh, wow!"
Yeah, we talked about John Ballas. Like your imagination fills in a lot of the gaps, and it's ends up being more powerful than whatever anyone can show you on screen.
So the Twin Peaks program was after Blue Velvet.
Blue Velvet was 1986.
Yep.
And Twin Peaks, I think the pilot aired in 1989, and then the rest of the show was like 1990.
And of course, the main character is the main character is played by Kyle MacLachlan, who plays the main character in Blue Velvet.
Yeah, because he's quite the young man in Blue Velvet, but I recall.
Yeah, well,
he's a little bit.
Kyle MacLachlan was in Dune, like that's where he and Lynch sort of started their collaboration. Yeah.
And then it'll be interesting to watch season 3 of Twin Peaks, and you can be like, I got whiplash.
Yeah, that's that was that was an experience. That's not a show. It's an experience.
But yeah, Blue Velvet.
Yeah. get across all his works.
It's funny because people maybe it's just because like we've seen so many. James and me have seen so many of his films, and like you read these comments online, and people are like, oh, it's so unapproachable, and I'm like, man, you wait till you get to Mulholland Drive.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, Inland Empire is even me. I'm like, what the hell? But yeah, Mulholland Drive and even Lost Highway, like
one of the things I love about Lynch is he approached filmmaking less as a storytelling device and more of an expression of art in and of itself.
Yeah.
He says he always refused to explain his work, saying that the movie speaks for itself. Yeah. But he said one of the things because I've been reading a lot of interviews because it's all over every interview he's ever done is being retweeted and reposted and all this. So there's a lot of stuff to learn out there, like stuff you might not have seen before. And one of these things I hadn't seen was an interview he did with someone. He talks about that his movies require a lot of intuition. He goes that when you watch like Mulholland Drive, he thinks he was like a big misunderstood film because everyone's like, I don't understand it. His response is always, you do understand it. You understand it through your intuition. He would always say, Inland Empire is a famous one because he said it's about the intuition. How does it make you feel? So Inland Empire doesn't have a structured narrative in the same way that a traditional film does because it's not supposed to. Yeah. So I'm sure we can argue its merits versus its cons. But he would argue that most of his films, like apart from the heavily structured ones like Dune, Blue Velvet, The Wild at Heart, it's meant to be felt more than understood as a straight narrative. Yeah. And the fact that they gave him lots of money to make movies where he was like, let's just vibe for 2 hours. Yeah. It's amazing.
That's what's interesting about his career as well, is like, I guess Eraserhead and his short films are very weird and out there. But then like, Elephant Man, Dune, Blue Velvet, and into Twin Peaks and Wild at Heart. It's like there's weird, but it's still sort of structured. But then as you go along to Lost Highway, Mulholland Drive, and then Inland Empire, he gets more and more esoteric and weird and arty. Except for Straight Story, which of course was just most straightforward.
But I just think it was interesting. Like you get like writers like James Joyce, it was very much the same thing. It's not about the story; it's about how does it make you feel.
I think we talked about with Herzog.
It's like music; it's the same. It's all the same thing. And he was playing with that with visuals.
We talked about with Herzog is like there are great artists of any medium who are just like, it's just I'm expressing how I feel through this medium, through this art form, and whatever you get out of it, that's great. Yeah. So I think because of mainstream films. And even, sort of indie films, like people still expect some sort of structure or expect some sort of, but sometimes, you just vibe with it and, and just make art and express something that can't really be explained and can only be felt.
Yeah, perhaps. 100%.
Yeah.
We'll be back with more after these quick messages. You are back on the Tuesday review, live on 98.9 Northwest FM. So I guess we'll move on. We have some other stuff to cover tonight, unless...
Yeah, well, does that, because Alan, is the most new to David Lynch, and I just thought, give you a round-up thoughts of
I think the
Blue
best
Velvet.
way you put it is, it wasn't like a film I could sit there and kind of understand stuff about and be like, oh, yeah, this and that. It's like, no, I sat there and I experienced it. And I was like, okay, all right, we're going.
I remember we're watching
going very fast.
We're watching it, and Frank's introduction, and I looked at Alm when he pulled out the breathing mask.
Yeah,
and Alm's just like, "Wait a minute, what?"
It's wild.
Frank does the poppers.
Yeah,
for pretty much the entire movie.
There's a gentleman he buys the poppers from who seems like an upstanding kind of a gentleman. And then he just gut punches Paul. What's his name?
Originally, though, it was meant to be helium.
Jeffrey.
Originally.
Yeah. Oh, you're supposed to talk in a high voice.
And Frank was supposed to talk in a high-pitched voice.
We could make our own fan edit.
But it's almost kind of more perverse, the fact that it's on poppers for the entire film instead.
And it's not it's not spoken about particularly. It's just this thing.
Yeah, it's just whatever. Whatever random.
And it was Dennis Hopper's idea too.
That's so awesome.
Yeah, look up poppers, kids.
We talked about cruising. We had a whole episode.
Anyway.
Yeah, but great. David Lynch, one of the greats. Huge loss. I wish you could have had one more film, but that's the way
Thumbs down to Netflix though, just real quick, because they're coming out there being like, oh, we were gonna give him the money to make a last film, and they didn't, and then they're bragging about it, like, look at us, how kind we are.
He's been trying to get it made for the last however many 5-10 years, and it's like, shut up. Anyway, we love you, David Lynch, wherever you are, wherever you have ascended to.
He's going back to the source.
Yeah.
The energy fields. Moving on, Callum and James had the opportunity to watch the new Angelina Jolie film.
Yes.
Maria,
yes. So Callum and I were lucky enough to be invited to an early screening of Maria, which is getting, Oscar buzz and stuff like that, because Angelina Jolie plays Maria Callas, who was a famous opera singer.
Yep.
And the movie takes place in the 70s, kind of towards the end of her life, and it's kind of like just a character drama about what she's going through and reflecting back on her life and her career and her relationships. And it was directed by Pablo Larraín. Is that who it was?
I'll let you pronounce it.
Yeah, but he also did.
It was a Pablo. I know.
Yeah, it was Pablo Larraín, and he also did Jackie and Spencer, which were two movies that were quite good, and two movies also based on the lives of, famous historical women. And so this is part of a sort of loose trilogy of, Jackie Kennedy, Princess Diana in Spencer, and now Maria Callas, who, funnily enough, has a connection to Jackie through...
This is the movie I found out where what the O stands for.
Jackie O, Onassis, so I think I remember way back in the oldie days on the old show, I saw Jackie at the theatre and I talked about it on the old show, and I really liked it. It was very engaging film, and Natalie Portman was great. And Spencer, I also thought was quite good. This one is also good. I think I liked maybe Jackie the most. But yeah, Maria is a good movie. Angelina Jolie gives a great performance, as do all the actors in the movie. And I think the sort of my favorite thing would be just the production design, the costume design. Like, it just looked, the cinematography, it looked very nice.
Yeah, it looks great, I love the music. Like the performances, like whether it's the flashbacks where you see old performances of Maria Callas, or it's like her attempting to perform. I thought they were, chills good. They were the sound design was incredible. Not just the music, but the way they handled the various performances, where it's in an empty hall or what have you, or a packed house. It was a very sad film.
It is. Yeah.
I found it very affecting. Because Jolie's performance is very vulnerable, but she also has a kind of strength, because it goes into her tough, some of her hints at her tough upbringing.
Maria Callas is like, I guess, her tough persona,
but like then when she gets older, it starts to crumble away a bit, and she starts to deal with these demons of her own. Yeah, and like the medication problems and this type of thing. I thought it was really fascinating because it tracks not just the present in the film. It tracks her quite a lot of her life. It a little bit at her when she was just starting out, but then you get these really awesome old sequences where she meets Onassis, and then she sees his boat and the world building that goes it's history. It's such an awkward term. But like he talks about his treasures and this kind of stuff, and like the way, and her first husband, and the way they all interact with each other. I thought was really great. But I haven't seen any of Pablo's other work, so that might just be the way he storytells.
Well, I think because the problem with biopics generally is that you're trying to squeeze a person's entire life and career into 2 hours. And most of the time it doesn't work. And most of the time you get stuff that's really, not, I guess, cheesy, but not in a good way. Like, really kind of like, oh, it's this actor who's pretending to be this famous musician or this famous and doing this big performance with hair and makeup, and it's this every scene is really quick because you have to get from their childhood all the way to their death or whatever. And I think the good thing about Jackie, Spencer and Maria is that they're all kind of based on a sort of big event that happens to these women. And so because it's more about, the end of Maria's life and career, and there's flashbacks to her reflecting and stuff, but mostly it's just about her living in Paris and in the 70s. And so it's not like a traditional biopic where it's just like, here's her as a kid, now here's her as a teenager when she became famous, and now here's when she recorded this album, and then here she was when she married this. It's not like trying to, roll along and get through the whole life.
It takes us time
it's
to
just
probably
like,
tell a slice of time.
It's a portrait of her at this specific time, and then there are obviously moments where you flash back or whatever, and it's like, okay, informs me about. But yeah, I think biopics are better when they're just about, usually better when they're just about a time like a specific time in that person's career, and not just the whole life, because it's too hard to sometimes you get really good ones, but so this isn't a traditional biopic in that sense. But yeah, this is more like a character study, character drama. It's very small and intimate.
It has a great supporting cast.
Yeah.
The housemaid and the servant are really great.
Yeah, they were great.
The dynamic they have with each other is really great.
Yeah, I really liked them a lot, and they're two Italian actors. Let me try to get their names because I can't remember. One's Gianfrancesco, I know that. No. Pier Francesco Favino and Alba Rocquawa, which it sounds like a German name, but she's Italian. And they were really good. And they actually started a movie together, that like a romance movie together. So I'm like, really? I'm going to watch that.
Yeah, because their chemistry is really good.
They have this great chemistry. Cody Smith-McPhee also plays a really interesting character that I was like, what's going on here? It's good movie. Looks really nice. Great performances, great score. Yeah. Obviously, it's one of those movies that you can just say it's very Oscar baity, but I think it's still, that doesn't make it bad. Like, it's still good, and it's very well made. And I think it's a good film. Even like, I think my mum would like it. It's that. Yeah. But also, in saying that, that's not to say it's boring or girly or whatever. I'm just like, I think it's a good.
It has broad appeal.
Yeah, and it's got to appeal to a specific, like.
It's not like The Brutalist, where it's like it's Oscar bait, but it's also this 3.5 hour drama. It's like, well, no, it's a bit more fun. Not to say The Brutalist
it's not
isn't fun. But you know what I mean? It's a bit more interesting.
No, I wouldn't say that's why. I think it's just because it's about a woman opera singer in the 60s, 70s. Like
what I mean to say is it's marketable. Like, you can be like abroad, like you could see people from like in their 70s going to see it.
That's what I'm saying. Is
people like us going to see it.
Yeah.
People like our parents' age going to see it.
Yeah, I feel like, parents' age, like people would appreciate that, especially if they know Maria Callas and sort of
the legacy,
knew about what she was doing at the time and her work and stuff. So it's a good movie. Check it out. It's released in Australian cinemas on January 30th, which is next week. It's definitely worth seeing on the big screen because it's a very nice looking and sounding movie.
Good sounding film too.
I believe in America it's just going straight to Netflix, which is disappointing, but I think hopefully that means after a while in Australia it'll get a streaming release here. I mean, everything gets a streaming release eventually. Yeah. But I'm hoping that means, if you can't go out to see it, like it should be out eventually on streaming. But yeah, it's worth checking out. If you haven't seen Jackie, I'd highly recommend that one. Spencer, I think, went straight to Amazon Prime.
I think so.
It might have got a release as well, but I saw it on Amazon Prime. That's a good movie as well. I also, I've seen a few of Pablo Larraín's other movies, but I just want to highlight one. He did a movie called No, which is really good. About the Chilean dictatorship and the sort of media sort of program to sort of get it, stop that garbage and sort of get people to, which is very relevant now. And we also talked a bit before with like, you know, Argentinian movies and stuff about, you know, the changing dictatorship and like the fallout for that. So No is a very good movie. I think that came out in 2012. But that, yeah. Anyway, moving on.
We also watched the movie Crazy Stupid Love.
Yes.
We've got out of Alan's recommendation.
Yes.
Yes. So this
Turned
is
up on our heads.
This is like maybe, you know, one of the first times where Alan... Wait, one of the first times Alan's ever watched a rom-com, if not the first time. But also one of the first time Alan was like, I watched this movie, and we're all like, excuse me, what? Now we have to watch it. Talk about it.
It came out, like 2011.
Yeah.
And it must have been one of the biggest movies of the year, because the cast was stacked for its time.
Oh, I don't know how well it did financially. I don't know.
But the cast was, it would have been a big deal, right? You had Ryan Gosling, Emma Stone,
Carell.
Yeah,
Steve
Carell, Julianne Moore, Kevin Bacon.
Yeah, Kevin Bacon. I didn't
and
know he was
the guy, John Carroll Lynch.
John Carroll Lynch, yeah, he's great.
He plays a good serial killer on TV.
Marisa
Or he's in Zodiac. Yeah.
Well, yeah, he was in Zodiac. Yeah, that was a movie. Yeah, so it's got a great cast. It's also Marisa Tomei. We said, yeah,
Marisa Tomei,
yeah. It's also like, because we've talked about the classic rom-com.
Yeah.
Nora Ephron is in a league of her own, and so it's kind of unfair for all the other rom-coms because she's the goat.
Yeah.
And this movie obviously came out in 2011.
So I guess it was in an era where it just would have naturally escaped our radar.
That's what I'm saying. It came out in 2011, so it's like it's not a classic 80s, 90s sort of rom-com, and it's not a crappy straight-to-streaming, more modern rom-com that we have in the last few years. It came out right in this point where we're like out of high school, going to uni, whatever, in our 20s. It's like probably weren't really interested as much in going to see it. But watching it now, almost 15 years later, was so interesting because it was like, 2011, not that long ago. It is a bit now, but it's not that long ago. But just watching it, I was like, wow, it's shot on film, and there's a bit of grain to it.
It looked really nice. I watched it on Netflix. And I watched it on Netflix.
Yeah.
And even the transfer on Netflix was really good.
Pristine.
Yeah.
It was pristine. It looked really colourful.
And it's like...
And I used headphones, and the actual audio track was dynamite.
Yeah.
Like the music, the sound effects, everything was really... I had a really good time watching this movie. So I mean, it's again, one of the last... Probably the last wave of films to be shot on film.
But that's what I was thinking. It's like 2011, it's like there was still a point where... that was still a point where comedies and romance and dramas were still sort of coming out on the big screen before, Avengers came out in 2012. Like this was before, it's like before the whole superhero kids movie, animated movie takeover. That was still happening at the time, obviously. But yeah, it's like the early 2010s was the last time we were seeing sort of decent budget rom-coms, dramas, still coming out to mainstream cinemas, getting wide releases with big name stars. So it's interesting looking back on it now and being like, it's a quote unquote real movie.
Yeah.
Not as good as like 80s, 90s classic, but still like, oh yeah.
I like Alan. I'd noticed, like, I'd watched it. And I'd noticed, like, I've seen this clip. So, I'd had exposure to this movie.
I remember seeing the trailer. I remember seeing the poster with the leg and, but, I never sat down to watch it.
I watched a few clips. I know, I having watched it, I'm like, I know that clip from the internet. I know that clip from the internet. I've seen this bit. Yeah. So, obviously, I've had more exposure to it. But I was pleasantly surprised with this film, I think.
It was good.
I
didn't realize the "what are you doing here" scene was from this film.
I've
seen that scene online before.
Is that the one, Is that what you saw to get you into the movie?
Because I've seen that scene many times. I've had my chuckle and then I've moved on.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's interesting because, we complain about TikTok or whatever and sort of social media, but it is interesting, and how young kids don't have attention spans or whatever. But it is interesting. It's like you can get a whole other audience that would never know about a lot of films just by someone on TikTok or YouTube or Twitter or whatever just tweeting a clip and being like, oh, this is hilarious or whatever.
If we had more time, we need to start a Tuesday review talk.
Yeah,
Tuesday talk.
I mean,
Just
we're not hardly active on our social
Yeah.
media anyway. It's like, could you imagine us trying to? We were trying to do YouTube Shorts for a while, and that that's
Doesn't
just
Graham.
takes too much time, and we don't have a video element,
Yeah.
so it's harder to get clips,
Yeah.
and we're working on it.
Slowly.
Social media is awful.
It's alright.
But yeah, Crazy Stupid Love.
Good movie.
Put
Um,
positive energy onto the universe and hope we win the lottery, and then we can
Yeah.
concentrate on some video stuff.
So my first thought
Don't
is
hope. You gotta.
So
what do
we
you
got to
call
will it into existence.
Yeah, will it into, like-
materialize it.
Like, so
Steve
I'm like,
Carell-
this gate's gonna
Callum-
open for us.
Callum did it
And it
with
just
Tom
did.
Ford,
I
so
do Tom Ford.
Callum,
Yeah,
start
yeah, yeah.
thinking.
I know.
Have to
Yeah, I
win the
know.
lottery. Have to win the lottery.
Steve Carell's a fool. I'm just gonna put that out there.
He's-
The central conceit of the film
Oh yeah.
is that his wife cheats on him, and then asks for a divorce.
Mm.
And there's this whole running theme about soulmates in the film. It's like a running motif.
Yeah.
I'm like, but it's a contradiction. If she was your soulmate, she wouldn't be cheating on you.
That's the thing. Yeah.
But then second of all, light spoilers for Crazy Stupid Love.
Don't.
One of
spoil
the first women he ends up meeting
it.
is Marisa Tomei's character.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, buddy, just stop right there.
Oh, yeah.
Doesn't have to go any further
At that
than
point, end of movie.
Yeah, roll credits. It's all fine.
You,
Yeah, that's it. But yeah, like there were a few cliches in the film, not in the good way. It's not like when people talk about Shakespeare cliches. It was like, it's not a cliche because he invented it. It's like this movie has straight up cliches in it.
Well, yeah,
some
you
which
can't.
some which it lampoons itself.
Yeah.
The rain. It's like, oh, yeah, that's a
Alan
cliche.
talked about the rain.
But then there were just some plot points where I'm like, come on, guys.
There was I haven't seen that many rom-coms in my life, but watching it, I was like, I feel like I've seen a lot of this played out before.
Yeah.
Also, it was interesting that there's like several subplots and characters running concurrently and that sort of converge at the end, which isn't unusual for any type of movie. But I thought it was interesting that it was juggling a lot, and I think it worked successfully at the end.
Yeah, it did.
But it's not Love Actually levels of like sprawling, different stories that all converge.
No.
It's not that. But it's well enough written, well enough made.
I'd watch it again.
Yeah, I think it's good.
I mentioned last time when we talked about it, there was, I guess, the scene towards the end where, it's kind of an unacceptable scene where...
Oh, with the boy.
The photos.
Yeah,
the boy with the photos at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, that I was kind of like right at the end. I was like, ooh, that's not
like
cool.
when Alan was talking about last week and is like, there's a bit inappropriate, and we're like, hey, it's 2011. Like there was some crazy stuff in movies and shows that now you'd not really.
I still don't think that was appropriate back then.
No, it's not. No, but that's what I'm saying is But even now, I'm like, it wasn't as bad as I thought.
I was
were
thinking
getting
there was like something way worse going on.
Yeah. I thought they were going to cross the line, and they didn't. I'm like, okay, it was still a bit on the edge,
like
but
I said,
not.
Look, I think I said this to Callum. I'm like, is it wrong? Because again, if you just role reverse this into a guy,
that's
4 years older,
yeah.
people would be out with weapons. But if I was a young man in that position, I'd be a very happy boy.
Yeah.
So I also got to understand that that's what life is sometimes.
Yeah.
I just very much liked Ryan Gosling's character because it wasn't like
he's so ridiculously good looking,
but it wasn't
and charming.
But it wasn't like because
so
a lot of times
smart.
it's when you got the handsome guy, he has to learn like a lesson and that kind of stuff. It's more he does learn a lesson in a way, but it's not like he has to get like beaten down a little bit and humbled.
Yeah,
it's just more he finds what he's looking for.
Well, he didn't even know he was looking for
he
it.
didn't know he was looking for
Basically,
it. That's
It's such an interesting character. My favorite part in the whole film. It's only like one quick sequence.
Is he eating the pizza? Yeah.
No. There's a scene where one of the characters asks if she can use his massage chair.
Oh,
and then he's like,
that's
it's in
great.
the garage, and then it goes to her sitting in the massage chair, and she goes, I hate it.
Yeah.
And he really sadly nods, and then the scene ends.
Yeah.
And I was like, see, that's superb.
That was great. Yeah, that's more of a almost close to a Nora Ephron thing, where it's just like just this human sort of something
unromantic moment.
just completely.
That makes up the
it's
life
not
of
this
these
grand.
people.
It's not this flowery dialogue. It's not this grand moment. It's not dramatic. It's just like two people being like, "Hey, I did this stupid thing." Okay. And then like moving on and sort of like it's such a realistic life.
I did like Ryan Gosling's character arc. At the start, I'm just like, okay, I know what
He's
this guy
Barney
is.
Stinson, I get it.
Yeah.
He's Barney Stinson, whatever.
Ladies'
and then
man, yeah.
They kind of play him off a little bit, like you get to know him a little bit more, and then it's kind of like by the end you're like, oh, I see where they're going with this guy. He's alright. And they have explanations for certain questions I had at the start.
Yeah,
Which was good. I did like my favorite scene in the movie was where Steve Carell softly whispers under his breath that a character's an alcoholic, and they hear him.
That was funny. Yeah,
And it's like, I was like, oh no. And it was. I found that very amusing.
I will say there were many like funny moments, and Steve Carell's so funny, but like I wouldn't say it's like a jokes, like a lot of jokes. It's quite just. It's an engaging movie. It was an entertaining movie, but it's mostly like the romance and like the characters, and then there's like some funny bits, but it's not like a
no. It's not like a joke after joke.
Like rom-com. It leans maybe more to the rom, but not even in the. There's not even a lot of romantic scenes. It's just more about the characters interacting.
It's just
and
a good movie.
It's just entertaining.
That's what I need more of as to get me into the rom-com genre.
Yeah, we've got to introduce into the
It's got to be light.
We've got to watch it. We've got to give you the Nora Ephron trilogy.
The Harry Met Sally, the You've Got Mail.
The Nora Ephron is the GOAT level. And
we'll call it the classic trilogy of You've Got Mail, Sleepers in Seattle, and you've got Harry Met Sally.
It's all like that, except maybe slightly funnier.
I just realized, I think Christian was the one that revealed this to me when I had discussed it with him, that I'd watched Crazy Stupid Love, and he's like, "Oh, I didn't like it." I'm like, "What a surprise, Christian! What a surprise you didn't like it." And I guess I discussed the idea of watching When Harry Met Sally, and he explained the scene. He's like, she was faking it.
That's classic.
The "I'll have what she's having" scene. Is from that film. It's one of those like unlocking moments.
Everyone know, even if they've never seen the movie, that everyone knows that scene.
So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that one you have to watch. But yeah, I think it's also good, broadening our horizons, and watching things we usually wouldn't. And it's also, when you're feeling down, like these are good movies. Sort of comfort movies. Yeah. Like, I guess, people call them chick flicks or whatever, but that's not.
Chick flicks exist. There's like
100%. There's different.
All chick flicks all chick flicks are rom-coms, but not all rom-coms are chick flicks.
Yeah. But
diagram.
I'm saying like, there's when people say that, oftentimes it's used as derogatory.
Incorrectly. Yeah. Do you remember when I watched Devil Wears Prada for the first time?
I still haven't seen that one. That's one we should watch.
That's one that's labeled as a chick flick pretty much everywhere you watch. I thought it was great.
Yeah. Good movie's a good movie, and
that's one you should check out, Alan. See if it sticks for you.
I think the problem with most
Christian
chick
loves
flicks is, of course he does. The problem
that's one of the 4 things that he likes.
That wicked.
I think most of the problems with chick flicks is 90% of the time the plot is something like an American girl goes to Ireland and goes back in time to marry a Scottish Highlander.
That's modern. Yeah, that's the modern thing.
Modern.
Yeah. The Mills and Boone erotic novel kind of.
They did some damage
in Hallmark. In Hallmark TV movie version.
Yeah, it's not like it's all like Little Women and Lady Bird, and I'm like, you know what I mean?
Oh, those aren't. Yeah, those are masterpieces. Yeah.
I was gonna say, speaking of broadening our horizons, I vote we'll watch Delicatessen next.
Oh, I love that movie.
Okay,
I haven't seen it.
Oh, I've got it. The boomerang knife.
Man,
no, I've got it. I haven't seen it, so that's.
Oh, then we have to watch Children.
City of the Lost Children. And I've got that on 4K.
Yeah, and we have to watch Amelie. Oh my god. All right. Nice. Well, maybe we can talk about Delicatessen next week. We'll see.
Yeah. I was gonna say there's a YouTube channel, Shout Studios.
Yeah,
they got some good stuff going on their YouTube channel.
They're great.
Have you always seen it?
Shout. They release a lot of great movies on Blu-ray and 4K physical media, but their YouTube
is also popping off because they will just like stream their full movies on YouTube.
Yeah, they also have like proper licensed content in high quality that they just stream for free
on YouTube. Cool. So check them out as well.
Yeah, 100%.
Another YouTube channel pretty cool is Choose Your Review.
Subscribe. Ring that bell.
No relation.
Ring that bell.
Like the other day they were showing Chopping Mall. They were on
They do like streams of like old Speed Racer anime, and they do
a lot of cool different stuff. They were doing last night. They were showing a Japanese dialogue version of Alf, the TV show.
That's awesome.
I'm like, that's so random.
And this is Shout Studios.
Shout Studios on YouTube. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Now then we're gonna start watching the Japanese version of King of the Hill, where like There's like
Is that a thing?
Yeah, and he's like, there's the only scene I've seen is like when Bobby smokes cigarettes, and like he's like gonna do it like this. And he's like, no, he's smoking like a woman, but he's obviously speaking in Japanese. Good time.
That boy ain't right.
All right, we're just about running out of time for tonight. You can follow us on all the social media platforms at Tuesday Review AU. That's Facebook, Instagram, Threads, Newsmask, Blue Sky, and Twitter.
Twitter's really bad. Delete it.
I mean, Facebook's
But
not that much better
unfortunately, all the
nowadays.
meta platforms are just as bad. It's
So-
getting worse every day.
should have a mailing
I don't know
address.
what to do. Should have what?
We should have a mailing address.
Well,
box.
we used to shout out an email, but
I'm like, you can't even get a PO box anymore these days.
No.
A lot of the post offices are just shutting those down.
Yeah.
yeah, well, a lot
Oh,
of
look,
posts.
if people want to
offices are
message
shut
us,
down.
just message us on Instagram. That's fine.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
Facebook.
Or
But I
Facebook.
like the hipster stuff. I want to be sent like a letter with like a seal, a wax seal with your own stamp on it.
Who owns?
Has an ear in it.
Yeah.
All right, David Lynch,
We
calm
should,
down.
you got your signet ring so
Yeah.
you can sign
Yeah,
things in the
sign-
wax.
Put on.
Who owns Blue Sky? Because that one's least problematic.
Wasn't
but
Blue Sky created from one of the original creators of Twitter who was like,
Oh,
I hate
yeah.
what you
Yeah.
Jack Dorsey?
do? Yeah. Blue Sky's alright.
Newsmaster
Because
is
I
the least
think-
problematic. But yeah.
Newsmaster's the
Newspass
least
is the least
follow us on
problematic.
Newsmaster.
Yeah, follow us on Newsmaster.
I still want to get an interview with Michael Foster.
We'll talk
One
to
day.
him. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's only
Yeah.
only January. We've got lots of people
Yeah.
to email and
Yeah.
stay tuned.
Rate, review, and subscribe to
Give us a 5-star
Yeah.
review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen, so then more people can find the show.
yes, help us grow.
Yes, ring that bell on YouTube.
Tell your nerd friends about us. Tell them to subscribe on YouTube. Tell them to fight us in the comments if they really want
Yeah,
Come
come
to the
at
station. We'll fight about it.
come at us.
to. Maybe not. Well, once in a while. With special events. So it's like, people bring like grievances.
Yes.
So it's like we set up an octagon. We're like, all right.
All right. We're also on Letterboxd. I'm Nathan B _90.
I'm channeldrifter.
I'm Alum20.
I'm Callum Tuesday.
Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll be back next week. Adios, cousins.